The Mets get their McCann, and the Tribe's last hurrah. Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here bringing you baseball along with the dog, Jeff Healy. We are live once again. It's turning out to be Tuesday Night Live. Usually ends up being Monday Night Live or Tuesday Night Live, either way. We finally have some moves to talk about. The first big domino fell. That is James McCann to the Mets. So we have a catching thing and we have a Met thing. And those are two big ones to start it off. So we would like to welcome you to the show. Dog will be in a moment for Veteran of the Day. But first, we want you to know that FMS Graphics wants to remind you that it's the perfect time to order holiday cards. Yes, don't worry about the date. It's only December 15th right now. Why not have a few minutes, take a few minutes to visit them at fmsgraphics.com. Ordering is easy and you'll receive your order in a few days. I mean, you do have to hurry at this point if you want to get them and fire them out. FMSgraphics.com is the place to visit for all of your printing and promotional product needs. And if you're catching this after what would be your holiday card deadline, fear not. Check them out anyway, because that need never really goes away. And especially with our COVID vaccine coming out and the world opening up probably by when it's getting warm out again in the northern parts of this country, you never know. You never know what your business is going to take you to do. We want you to follow us at Diamond Diehards on Twitter and Instagram. We are Diamond Diehards on Facebook. There's a page and a group. You can follow us in both places. Right now we're streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, both Facebook pages, I think. The Facebook page and the Facebook group. We're on LinkedIn. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. We're omnipresent. And I don't think I missed any of those. I think those are all the places that we're streaming at the moment. And maybe more to come. A lot of good, exciting meetings happen. We told you that we were going to start building this thing, and so far we're doing just that. You could follow the dog, Jeff Healy, at Jeff Healy8. That's the number 8 on Twitter. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, I'm Rear Naked Choke, all one word, no underscores or anything, the original. And Joe Rizzo MMA on Instagram. You could check me out there. And if you're into mixed martial arts, you could check out my other show that's been going since 2007, Rear Naked Choke Radio. It's pretty good. And we'll probably be doing more of that in the near future. So I think that you're all set. The only other thing you need to know is that you can pull an Uncle Paul, which is you check out the live stream. You can't catch the whole thing. You're windowing in and out. You're parachuting in and out of the live stream. And you want to go back on your power walk the next day or a couple of days later and catch the whole episode in depth, because the dog's going to be giving you nuggets like he did last week. We'll talk about that. And, go subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you follow Joe Rogan over to Spotify, we're there. So follow us over there, subscribe, whatever you need to do, and that's how you pull an Uncle Paul when you're on the treadmill, power walk, lifting weights in your basement, whatever it is. We want you to follow, subscribe, share, and interact with us. Okay, enough of the intros. Let's get to the dog for Veteran of the Day. Dog, take it away.
All right, Riz, we got another fun one here today. We thought it'd be rather timely, considering all the news, the vaccine's going out, and nurses starting to getting vaccinated, so off to a great start. So who better to be our Veteran of the Day than the guys in charge of the whole thing? General Gus Perna, he's a U.S. Army 4-star general. He's the Chief Operating Officer of Operation Warp Speed. Previously, he was the Commanding General of Army Material Commands, basically anything the Army needed in the world, that guy got it there. Other assignments, he was in Iraq in 2005, 2007, leading a brigade, led a battalion in the first part, Operation Iraqi Freedom 1, back in 2003 as well. I actually interacted with him a little bit, actually his staff, really. When I was overseas in Iraq, he was the J4, the guy in charge of logistics for U.S. Forces Iraq in 2009, 2010. Gus Perna is also a New Jersey native. So I figured Riz would dig that one there. Who attended Morris Hills High School, kind of right between me and Riz. He graduated as Distinguished Military Graduate from Valley Forge Military Academy College with an associate degree in business administration. He's got every award known to man, just about, and schooling out the yin yang. So, a great guy to have out there. If anyone's going to get it done, Gus Perna's going to get it done for us. So, Gus Perna, veteran of the day.
A good one. We've been, veteran of the day. It's like one of our things, right? I mean, like it's important to us. And if you're new to the show, so we gotta. I mean, I guess we could say this every few shows. And Dog's a veteran. He's an Army veteran, and we thank him as we always do. Dog is our veteran of the day emeritus, but we like to share in the veterans of the day otherwise as well. And but it's important to us, and we like to do our little piece here to honor the veterans. And as we have some of these discussions offline with some other companies, I feel like the veterans and the armed forces are gonna play a part in our growth here. So hopefully, exciting things to come from there, near and dear to our heart. Dog, a quick little rundown. We'll try to do this since I actually took notes, and we had our disjointed-ish sort of pre-show meeting. So if you see me look down, literally, literally notebook.
Nice.
So we got okay. So we got McCann, the first domino to fall. That's really of consequence because it's a catcher and it's a Met.
And
We have
great call by Riz on that one.
and we have
You were all over that weeks ago.
we're going to talk about the Indians saying that they're going to change the name of the franchise. We're going to cover the DJ LeMahieu stuff, where he is with the Yankees and or not, or not. And then a couple other things that I'm going to sort of spring these on Dog a little bit. There's three outfield contracts that were just signed, and I want to see his blind economic take on this, since the guy works in lifting up our great American economy every day and knows way more about it than I do. And maybe a little bit, if we have time, for a quick review of who looks like they're going to be part of the Super Twos and what that all means. These guys that would be, eligible for arbitration an extra year, even though they haven't had the full amount of service, and the top 22% of those guys that fall just short become Super Twos, and it lines their pockets. They become arbitration eligible, essentially like an off season earlier than they otherwise would be. First and foremost, it's not a Met podcast, it's a baseball podcast, but gee, you wouldn't know, except for the fact that I'm sure our pal Stevie Cohen must listen, because
End of the show.
boy, I mean, the way that the first move came down, you would think that he'd listen to me. I gotta say it, Dog. I gotta say it.
You were right on it.
I politicked for this move before anybody was talking about McCann. I was like, McCann's got to be your guy. I think I even got the term right, if we go back.
I think so. I think you were saying it's 4 if you had to. I think if I remember right. I think we were saying 3 probably, 4 if you had to. And even 4 would be okay.
At the 40 million mark, right?
4 mil.
So
Spot on.
term and years and everything. Gotta give myself a little pat on the back. It's a little harder with the salmon jacket on. But
I do like the combo of the salmon jacket and the black shirt.
It's not just a
that.
black shirt. It's a Tommy Bahama shirt.
Oh, very nice.
Getting ready for that Northeast blizzard, baby. You love it. Gotta love it.
Meanwhile, I'm going back to Mets 86.
Yeah. Hey, your
Magic is back.
Your return to glory might be just around the corner.
Hoping
I
so.
mean, you have a new general manager, right? So let's start there,
Yep.
right? Go ahead. Start with your new GM. You like the
Yeah,
hire?
I mean,
know.
great hire. We've been talking about this a little bit back and forth, kind of on the air and off the air, I guess. I think his name specifically came up off the air, but sort of the concept of once it seemed like the Mets weren't able to get their top guy for head of baseball operations, and Theo decided he's taking this year off. We were sort of speculating that, what do you do if you're the Mets? Do you just tank a year and just say, like, it's, John Rico's the GM working for Alderson, and we just we do a year of Sandy and we move on to what we want to for the future. Sandy's obviously at retirement age. And then we started speculating around a little bit. It's like, well, say you got somebody who's would fit under, let's say, if you had a Theo come in next year, right? So you can't be for sure he's here, right? Until he's signed, you don't know that. But if you get someone And oh, by the way, he also happened to line up under the Theo tree, or he has a working relationship with a guy who might be in charge of the whole team in a year or two or something like that. So much the better. And the rumors start to come out about some of the different guys, and this guy really hit it. I mean, everyone basically around baseball has loved loved the pick Porter, and he's got a great combo of scouting and analytics. Mets need help exactly, particularly in analytics, probably a little bit with scouting as well. Perfect fit. Sandy can kind of do a little bit more of the business stuff up on top, kind of start developing him for that. And, the guy's like 40, 41. He'll have a chance to learn under Sandy. Maybe he learns, who knows, whatever time period Theo wants to kind of run and do his thing before he bolts off. 5-10 years from now, this guy could be, head of baseball ops and running it for as long as he wants to.
Jared Porter has rings, right?
Four rings, I believe, right? He comes in as like an intern. He's like an intern. And he's not a jerk, which is a great I mean, that's something, frankly, we have not heard that. I mean, we heard Sandy was a good guy, but I mean, you haven't heard like people saying like, yeah, he actually looks out for guys and remembers he started as an intern and everything else like that. I mean, all the sorts of stuff you really want to hear. And it was from people outside the organization who have no axe to grind more or the other. If anything, used to taking free shots in the Mets, and pretty much everyone's like, yeah, this guy's the right guy. It hurt when the Mets couldn't get Bloom when he was going. They wound up going down to the Rays. And, it's like, geez, he would have been a great one. Wasn't going to work in the Wilpons. You take the Wilpons out. Now the Mets can get the right kind of guy to kind of come in. And I said, so far, Stevie's 2 for 2.
Look, I mean, Jared Porter checks all the boxes, and he even rejected being in Arizona to come to New York. So that's a little dig on our pal Schmitty, who's watching. He always joins us, and he's out in Tucson, I think,
Tucson,
right? Yeah, so Schmitty's out in Tucson, where it's still, December 15th. It's probably 908 degrees out there, or maybe nine below. Who knows?
But he's into water, though. It's a growth market out there. It's demand, not supply.
so there you go. Look, it's a great move. It checks all the boxes, like you said, Dog. A good guy, good baseball guy. He's been around winning, and he knows that in a year, if Theo Epstein becomes available to the Mets, that you don't have to do anything, right?
Yep.
Theo just slots in where I mean. Is there a high enough way for me to put the slot without getting out of camera?
Whatever slot he wants.
Yeah, whatever slot he wants. And, if Sandy Alderson wants to ride into the sunset after that, or if he wants to hang around and get his ring, I mean, all these things seem to line up pretty well. The thing that I like the most is that they were able to get McCann and pay him, what I think is a reasonable term. Now you just got to figure out, in my opinion, as you know, I think the signing gets even better if you're catching the guy 100 games a year. I know you're a bigger fan of 120, maybe even 130, but I think that you get the most out of that contract if you're catching him 100 games a year. And, I don't know if Tomas Nido is the other guy in the platoon, but, McCann did damn well in his platoon in the 30, games that he played last season for the White Sox with Yasmani Grandal. And, if this guy just plays the defense that he looks like he's capable of playing, which is good, he's above average. Is he going to win a Gold Glove? I don't know. I mean, those things are arbitrary anyway. He's not hurting you behind the plate as a defensive receiver. His pitch framing went from like worst to first. So that's something that we got to watch, because that, so if
a trend or a blip,
right? Is it the aberration or is it the trend? But you know what? He puts it together offensively, he puts it together defensively for 2 running years, and he's still at the end of the window of his prime, but hopefully his ascension will mean that his descension is not as quick. And the way to do that, in my opinion, for catchers is 100 games behind the dish, and then as many as you want in the playoffs. Essentially, at that point, you're keeping them fresh. I mean, I even have the workload reduced for September, where they just don't have to do it that much. They can catch 2 out of every 3, at that
Yeah.
point. Um,
I mean, the nice thing with the Mets is, you're getting enough hitting around it too. That even if he regresses somewhat on that and he doesn't have quite the power that they're looking for and whatnot, that's fine. I mean, honestly, what the Mets need is they need someone who's not going to be let the pitchers be a turnstile when guys get on, because the Mets have been susceptible to that. And like you say, getting the bottom of the zone, right? I mean, Wilson Ramos was terrible at that down there. The Mets have a bunch of guys who throw hard, throw six sliders, go right down there. I mean, that 10% differential. I mean, that's 4 or 5 pitches a game. That could be the punch out on strike two, going to strike three versus a 3-2 count, and also the wheels are in motion. So I mean, that to me is the key sort of aspect of that. Yeah, Realmuto was probably a little bit better on the catching side, probably a little bit better arm. But you nailed it. I mean, it's relative value, right? Was it worth paying up, let's 10 mil, whatever it is, 10 mil, let's say, the Realmuto would get more than McCann? Is it worth paying almost double to get the number one guy versus the number two guy? And he could run a little bit, and the Mets don't run anyway. So what's the difference?
how long is he going to be
Um,
able to run too? Yeah, he's
yeah, very
he's
fair.
had the hip injury, and for a catcher, like I said, I'm in on Real Muto if he can play another position. Like McCann, I don't care really as much if he can play another position. Like if
Yeah,
his stick is that good, I don't know. You'll figure out a way to get him in somewhere. They don't, but they really don't need him to do that.
yeah.
You
And the
know,
Mets don't really have a spot. I
yeah,
mean, that's the other problem. I mean,
but
they're
Real Muto, like I want his bat. I
yeah. If I'm
think
paying that
in
much,
there.
he's got a bat every
And he's
day.
got it right. He's got it bat every
Yeah,
day, and he needs and you're not going to have the DH at least for another year, right?
yeah,
So he's got to have another position, and also that helps me get to that 100 games behind the plate. And then the other thing that becomes good with a deal like that is if you have another guy that's coming up behind him. Like let's say the Mets have another guy that's coming up behind McCann in 3 years. I mean that contract is either A, easy to move, or B, easy to eat, and you don't mind. Like you're like, okay, so he just becomes a backup catcher for the last like 2 years out of it. If the other guy's coming up,
yeah,
he's not going to be
yeah. I mean,
making much
Alvarez
any.
is supposed to be. You never know, right? I mean,
You don't
young
know,
guy like
yeah.
that, but
And catchers are so hit or
it lines
miss.
it lines up well if
Yeah,
that's what they want to do.
right. And then if that becomes a 50-50 split again, it's catcher. You're fine with it. You're getting more mileage out of these guys. Plus, if he's making the major league minimum for a couple of years, then you're only spending $10 million on your catching position. And I'm going to make this comparison to hockey because I'm a big hockey guy. What teams are starting to do in hockey with their goalies are catchers. They're a lot like catchers to me. Now, of
Hmm.
course, goalie's a much more important position because there's only 6 guys on the ice at a time, and he's the only one that's on the ice the whole time in a hockey game. So that's a really important position. But what teams are doing is they're getting more smart, and they have a salary cap in hockey as opposed to a luxury tax, so it's even more critical that they manage their funds this way. They start to look at how much are we spending as an aggregation of our goalies for the year. And some teams are opting for two mid-level guys, and they're going to play them as 1A and 1B.
Yeah,
Other teams are opting for the superstar, and then saying, you know what, I'm going to pay a little extra to back this guy up with a veteran during the year because I don't want there ever to be a game where I have somebody inexperienced in goal. So they're willing to spend a little bit more there, but of course, it's at the expense of their forwards and their defense. So catching to me is the same thing. The more you can get solid defensively when you don't have the other holes to fill, um, not around the diamond, but in terms of the bats when they come up in the lineup. If you could bat that catcher in your bottom three, and you could spend 12 million a year on 162 games caught, you're winning big. You're
yep,
opening up a lot of other things. Like, and the other guy to me, now we'll move on to what, the Mets' next move should be. And I've said it steadfastly all along. For me, it's Bauer, unquestionably. And, I think there's a very, very good argument for Springer, and I don't think you lose either way. But I would much rather have the pitcher And I have, a few contracts that I'm going to talk about, which I teased before, Dog, as maybe a reason why, and we could sort of circle it back later. I just want to see your opinion now, having had this first big move out of the way, and that's a big move, a catcher and a Met. That's a double. In football, they call it a double move, like when a wide receiver jukes a guy
The
twice,
out and up.
and the jockstrap's sitting there, and the other guy's catching it. It's basically like every time the Jets are trying to win a game, and they just give up a non-Hail Mary on a regular play. But this next move again, the Mets somehow they make one move, and I have no idea where Realmuto's going. But the Mets are off the table now for him. And, the Mets seem to still be holding the cards. So right now they're very clearly winning the offseason right now.
Yeah, so far, I mean, you've got, I mean, I guess the top free agents are Bauer, Springer, and Real Muto. Um, but McCann is probably somewhere in that 4 to 8 category. I would say particular catching. Like we sort of talked about before, the problem with like if you didn't get McCann is then it was like, well, you pretty much have to get Real Muto. And that's not a good spot to kind of be. Like, the Mets could live. It wouldn't love it, but if you don't get Springer, you could get a Jackie Bradley Jr. You could say we're just going to roll the dice and hope Nemo comes through for us okay in center field. Especially if we got to play Dom Smith anyway. Is it worth it taking Nemo's bat out of the lineup to put another guy in to get a little bit better a lot better defense? That's sort of a tougher one. But like with McCann and Realmuto, if you didn't get one of those two, boy, you're in tough sledding at that point. And there'll be other teams that are going to face that, right? So I mean, if you're the Phillies, right, do you let Realmuto go?
Not when you
That's
got.
a tough one.
I mean,
you just brought Dombrowski in, and
just
you're
brought
going to let Realmuto go.
you brought Dombrowski in, and
Yeah.
he is like I'm definitely going to sign, Realmuto, re-sign him guy. Like that's his
Yeah.
thing, right?
So yeah. So if
But
you're
which
someone else, yeah.
now because you got McCann, can you get Springer and Bauer? Or if you had to prioritize which one you're going to get, which one is Dog opting for?
Like, of course, to quote Uncle Paul, both. It's funny. We've gone back and forth on this. I still maintain, I think Springer, because I think Springer helps improve the entire pitching rotation, and fills a bigger need for defense up the middle. So if you get McCann and Springer, that's a huge improvement to your pitching just by the fact that those guys are there. My problem with Bauer is, again, I'm a little nervous that he's in a little up, a little down. I mean, it's funny, I was kicking this one around in my head. I'm like, if you went, Bauer's a pretty confident guy. He likes, the 1 year deal and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, you know what? What if you did like a 3-year, $100 million? Probably overpaying in the short run. Kind of like you were saying on that, like the years and stuff. I'm like, 3-year, $100 million, maybe a 1 year opt out. Either way, the usual BS they kind of put in there. Maybe a club option to buy out and player option to opt out or something like that. Then maybe I'm kind of because honestly, I'm gun shy of Bauer coming into New York, and I'm more nervous on that than I am with like a Springer. I don't really see the downside on a Springer move. So once again, like to me, it's like it's interesting. Like McCann, like if you say like McCann is sort of like your value play at catching, then you start to wonder like if instead of Bauer, I can get Rizzo and I can also sign Hendricks and have like the old Yankee pen of old, where I've got like 5 guys who are like sick. I can bring into starting the 7th inning. I'm like, what? All I need is this dude to give me 5. That might be the value play. And right now you're improving the rest of your staff as well, because you got another big arm in the bullpen to help back up all the rest of your guys. DeGrom can go 6 instead of having to go 7 all the time. Stroman probably the same sort of thing. Syndergaard coming back, not being able to go as deep. Maybe having a sick pen and saying, you know what, I'm gonna have good guys. I've already got an ace, right? So that to me again is sort of part of the value to the Mets. I think a Bauer is not necessarily as valuable to the Mets as he is to somebody else. The one thing I would say with Bauer that makes him interesting is looking at Syndergaard, looking at Stroman on a 1 year qualifying offer, then now that gives you a little more contract flexibility for next year. So if I'm the GM, maybe I say, hey, I wouldn't mind having him in there, and I can pick between who comes back better and who pitches better, Stroman, Syndergaard. That's what the argument against me is that if Syndergaard and Stroman both screw up, and now also my rotation's a disaster coming to the next year, and I got to try and sign everybody. So maybe I say, Bauer, I'm pretty confident Bauer's going to be good. Maybe it's a little bit of an overpay, but long story short, to come back, I'm still a Springer guy, and I know you're a Bauer guy.
Yeah, but I'm not against Springer. Like, I think you're fine. Yeah. I think you're fine either way. But I'm gonna throw you.
Morris throwing Tanaka in there, which we never mentioned. I mentioned like the first all season one. We haven't talked about him again. There's another one that's in there. I'd love him in there, number 4. Uncle Paul hates it.
Uncle Paul hates it. Yeah.
I'd love him down there as like a number 4. In-year kind of guy, maybe upside in the playoffs.
I'm gonna bring a name into this, for example, that I haven't used before, which is to buttress my Bauer to the Mets is the best move for the Mets argument. And I like what you're saying about I think it has validity, where you're saying, you feel like maybe there's a couple of red flags there with Bauer, but you're kind of searching. You're sort of searching for them. You're like, oh, he's a little inconsistent maybe, or he doesn't have a long track record. But the guy I'm going to point to first he's the guy that makes me feel like we shouldn't worry. Like, these really are not red flags. And that's going to be Zach Greinke. Like, there seem to be red flags about Zach Greinke. He got paid a way load of money for a long time, and he hasn't been the best pitcher, but he's usually good or really good, and sometimes he's really, really good, right?
Yep.
And he's also had some big games in the postseason. But if he's your number 2, or even your number 3, then you're in really good shape. And you would have thought that a guy like that did have a lot of red flags around him because of, he didn't want to play in places, and he doesn't talk to the media, and he's got, some personality issues that, have been kind of documented that are, not his fault. It's just something that he has to deal with, right? So, it's a buyer beware, right? And, Bauer, honestly, he's better than Greinke probably ever was. He's got better stuff. He's just outgoing in a life and times where being outgoing is not bad. It's not a bad thing, I mean, he's not
He hasn't been bad outgoing.
He's not getting arrested. I mean, like, he's not he's not beating people up well, you're not allowed to go to a bar, but I mean, like, if he was, it's he's not getting himself into trouble doing that. He answers his own questions. He's going to deflect away from guys in the locker room that want to stay more quiet, right? And I just don't I find very little wrong with trying to sign a guy like that when he's that good. And the other thing is that I'm seeing out of a lot of these pitchers, Dog, that have been really effective over the last 5 years as they're starting to advance into their mid and even late 30s. Guys like Scherzer. I mean, Scherzer to me is probably like the best example where you thought, okay, this guy's he's seen his better days, and he's with the exception of the truncated season we just had. I mean, you could argue the guy's the best pitcher. Verlander, okay, the elbow finally gave out, but I mean, he got the ring, right? And he's been totally dominant otherwise, and he's a great big game pitcher. So what's to say? Like, you're talking about if you could sign a guy like Bauer, right? And you're not even like, even if you're signing him to a 7-year deal and he ends up like Greinke, it still ends up being a really good deal. Like, and to me, that's the low.
That's a healthy assumption in 7 years forward.
But that's a low bar for what I think that you're going to get from him. I think in the worst case scenario, he's as good as Greinke, and in the best case scenario, he's pushing to be a constant, battle to number 1, which is the absolute positive greatest problem that you want to have in a playoff series. Like, oh, should we start DeGrom or should we start Bauer in game 1? And then if you win the series, like you have the other guy ready to start the other game one probably, or Tanaka.
Tanaka. We
So
got Tanaka.
so I think again, and a guy like Springer, just for putting him in this team at this time, I do think that's fine. But if I'm gonna start spending, the upwards of $20 million a year, I'd rather probably jump right to the 30 and go for the pitcher, and worry about like piecing together what I can in a defensive center fielder because I would really like the bat. I certainly would, and he does fit in right in like that number 2 spot in the order, and he's going to play, you know, good, probably above average defense in center field for a couple of years. So again, I mean, if it's 4 years, I could live with it. If it's, we start getting to 5 years, which he's going to ask for if he has other suitors, now I'm starting to question it because it becomes an albatross at the end. If he stops hitting, right? We know that his defense is gonna not be center field worthy
Yeah,
by,
why is he going to stop hitting though?
well, because maybe he loses his bat speed. I mean, like, why did Jay Bruce go from hitting
I
like
mean, I'm more confident
37
this position.
homers in a year to not being able to hit? It was because he lost a slight tick and he could no longer keep up with the fastball, and it happened in an off season, and he became a complete like K homer guy. He went from being a passable batting average guy. Like that's what happens sometimes. And you're talking about to me, there's more risk because then you're always going to have to find a place for Springer, and if he's not a top 2, 3 in the order guy for you, like you might have these other guys coming up that just are better than him, and then you got to stash him in the outfield somewhere. You're going to be looking for a center fielder anyway. Like I just to win now.
If we need a center fielder
Fine.
4 years from now, we can find
No,
it.
I just think it'll be before that. It'll be before that. It'll be after. You'll get 2 center field seasons.
I
out
have
of
more
him.
confidence in a position player going later in his 30s than a pitcher.
But he's a center fielder. You'll get 2 center field years out of him. 2. He'll be 33. He's not playing. He's not with your pitching staff. You're not going to want to play a 4 in center for the Strat heads. By the way, great job by
We
the.
were playing Michael Conforto and Nimmo there for like the last 3 years.
Yeah, and you didn't win. Okay.
How much does Springer have to come down in those last couple of years to be worse than Nimmo last year?
Okay, but you didn't win, so that's the whole point, right? Like you're trying to win, like you want to have a guy better. And by the way, great job on Stratomatic's tweets of the for Monday and Tuesday, but the positional previews, a lot of really cool stuff in there. I
That was
wonder,
good
like,
stuff.
there were a lot of really cool tweets in there. So great job by the Stratomatic Twitter,
He's
and then
a
the full defensive profile I think comes out on Wednesday. So if you're listening on Wednesday and you're a Stratomatic fan, go to Stratomatic
Well,
and check out all the ratings. I think we should have somebody on to talk about the Strat
We
ratings.
should have someone on about that. Especially we could talk about the fielding prowess of Springer versus some of the other options. in
It's
center
worth
field.
it's worth talking about. It's worth
I
talking
agree
about.
100%.
If you've
That would
seen
be
a
great.
regression, if he's been a 1 in past years and then he fell to like a 2 or 3 this year, plus he's been playing the corners a little bit more. Look
You're
again,
killing my center fielder already. Why you being like that?
even Junior
I'm not good.
Griffey,
He's not my guy yet. You're killing him.
even Junior Griffey and Andrew Jones at this age were in their last years
Hold on,
of center fielding.
I'm gonna pull up Andrew Jones.
Okay.
How late was he until?
By the way, if you wanted to try to win the argument the other way, the guy you'd pull up is Willie Mays, because he was
I'm
playing.
not gonna cheat going back quite that far, but yeah.
He was playing center. He was playing center
So,
in
like,
the
for
World
Mets.
in the World Series. At 42, he was playing center in the World Series in '73 for the Mets. Think about that. Think about that.
Let's see, all right, Andrew Jones.
So, Dog's looking up when Andrew Jones.
I'm looking up Andrew Jones. That's not a bad comp actually. Let's see.
Yeah, they're probably similar type players,
I
right?
gotta figure out how to-
Springer maybe a better, like all-around offensive player with a little less power. Andrew a better defensive player.
Yeah.
Dog's got to do the Mike Francesa. If we had the mics that were not headsets, you'd tap the.
7th range. I don't know what somebody's. Oh man. I'm trying to figure out the baseball reference
You got to go
codes
down.
on the side here. So
No, on the bottom
I know.
it.
I got the games by position.
Yeah, so
I
you could
got
just see it.
all
It'll
right.
say
So
like
like 30,
outfield.
31. It's like 8. All right. So center field. I have this D7/3H9. I have no idea what that is. Then 33 looks like he's right and center. What the hell D7H is?
Go scroll down. Scroll down. If you scroll down, it'll have his games played by position. It'll have his defensive metrics down there. This is way easier when you do it than I do it. There you go.
This wasn't in the notes.
This is way easier. Then I don't have to like live stream it, do the audio, do the video. I just have Dog look stuff up.
Yeah, we should do like a screen share.
Yeah, we could do that, but I don't think we're gonna do that. No, we could
So
do that.
30, he's 33, 89 games, outfield.
And then it'll go
62 in right field. Oh wait, okay, 62 in right field, 17 in center field.
There you go.
That's my notes here. Let's go down to. How did my time it's the Yankees?
Yeah, I mean he was.
He always plays 57 at that point, so it's 39 in left. So he was 34. He had 39 games in left and 19 in right. Okay, so that's proving your point.
Yeah, so I mean
they had Gardner there, so he's a better player, but.
Yeah, but the point is, like, all these guys, like, they get.
He was a Gold Glove. He was a Gold Glover at 28, All-Star MVP, 29, Gold Glove at 30 for Atlanta, and 31. He had 66 games in center for the Dodgers. 30 next year. He went to Texas. Only played 17 in the outfield and DH'd 55.
Yeah, so look at a guy like Andrew Jones.
Done.
I mean,
yeah.
he was
fair point.
He's
33. He was like 62 games and 17 in center.
So your defensive generational center fielders are Griffey and then Andrew, right? So and I think if you looked up Griffey, you'd find something similar. Maybe he lasted.
I think Riz just talked about a Springer. I think I'm all in on the Bauer outage.
Bauer outage. I'm not out on.
If you nailed again, Riz, I'm really gonna be flat out impressed.
I'm not.
It's not just the salmon jacket.
I'm not salmon. Salmon is powerful.
Salmon.
I'm not out on Springer. I like Springer. I think he's a good fit. I think he's a great fit, actually, as long as I don't have to sign him for more than 4 years. If I got to sign him for more than 4 years, then I'm out. But I just think that I think Bauer's the gem, of the high priced guys. Of the high priced guys, I think he's the gem. And I thought McCann was the gem.
Fair.
If you could get him at 4 years, $10 million-ish a year, I thought that was great. So now
that's the value play.
Now I'm going to jump ahead, and we'll talk about the Indians in a minute. But I'm going to jump ahead to one of the things I had teased for
I'm going to keep looking for answers to back me up on why he's not going to be a disaster.
I don't think it'll be a disaster. It's just that you're creating a move for yourself down the road that log jams a spot that's generally, not the hardest to fill. The hardest to fill is the front of your pitching rotation. So if you're going to take shots, like I want to take my bazooka and try to, fill out the front of the rotation. That's where if I want to swing big there, and if I miss, I miss. I still figure I can, find a way to cover center field with the rest of the guys in the lineup that I have. And the big assumption is that, I'm assuming Pete Alonso at first and Dominic Smith in left for all the games. Like that's what I'm assuming, because that makes your lineup great. I mean, that makes your lineup really like you can get away with a lot when you have those two plus Conforto in there and McNeil, and I like JD Davis too. We'll see what happens there. But Dog, I'm going to jump ahead. There were 3 outfield contracts that were just signed. David Dahl from the Rockies, he's the left-handed stick. He went to Texas for a year at $3 million. And Hunter Renfroe, the right-handed stick, a year and just over $3 million to the Red Sox. He leaves the Rays. Good defensive corner outfielder. Probably could play in center if you needed him to. And a lot of power. Doesn't hit for a lot of average. And the other deal, I don't know if we mentioned it on the last show. I think it was happening as
Yeah, I
we
think you're
went.
right.
It was Adam Eaton to the White Sox for a year at 7 million with an $8.5 million option for the next season, or else a $1 million buyout. So either way, Adam Eaton, like if he plays 1 year, he gets 8 million. If he plays 2 years, he gets 16 and a half. So they pay a little more for Eaton, who's a better, more versatile player. He's an everyday, possibly very top or very bottom of the lineup guy who's got a good glove, even if, you could play him in center, but they don't need to. Um, but like Dahl and Renfro to me, like that's even like a perfect platoon. Like you could platoon those two guys, and I'm thinking, dog, like first of all, the other guy we talked about, my fallback position would be if you sign Bauer and then you don't want to pony up the money for Springer, then you definitely go after Jackie Bradley to just to cover the D, just to cover the D. He solves your
Yep.
defensive problems out there. Yes, it's another left-handed stick, but I'd rather. It's just way easier to find the other side of the platoon, right? Marisnik. I mean, you get any of those guys. Marisnik himself would probably be a fine platoon with Jackie Bradley
Yep.
if you did,
Bring it back.
and again, you're batting these guys toward, the very bottom of the order. You could bat them, they could share eighth in the order.
Yep.
Um,
I mean,
but
I think both Dahl and Renfro are pretty good signs. I kind of think Eaton's hitting the wall. Um, I think he's starting to age kind of quick. This is sort of my view. So I was actually shocked when he got the contract that he did, and I do think that's going to look back and that's going to look like an overpay.
I
Um,
feel like he goes back to the
maybe
White
like the Mets
Sox.
Marisnik last year.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like he goes back to the White Sox and becomes like their Brett Gardner. That's like if he had been there the whole time,
But
he'd be Brett Gardner. Very
yeah,
similar
I
type
think Gardner's
players.
better, but
Yeah, he is. But
yeah,
Eaton's been pretty good. I mean, Eaton's had some pretty good years. He doesn't have the speed and all the stolen bases like he used to, but he has a little bit more power, and he
mm,
never hurts you with a glove, right?
yeah.
So, but what I'm thinking, dog, is these are like model contracts for
Schmidt's on from Arizona.
these are like model contracts for this 2021 season of big question marks. Because like to me, a guy like Hunter Renfro, coming off what he did in 2019, and then being on a team that he helped to the World Series, even if he wasn't great last year, like he's a bargain at what you just got him for. I
Yep.
mean, and even Dahl, like Dahl's been a guy, okay, yeah, Colorado profile, whatever. I mean, Dahl's one of these guys that, I would not be at all surprised if he hit 320 for you. And if you
Yeah.
platooned him and, maybe he ends up being a pretty good player for you. I mean, I don't know how that Texas Park is going to play over like a full or possibly full season, as we'll talk about. The dog was right. Um, so I just thought we're
That's you
seeing
know
where
what's
these.
interesting is because we've been talking so much like Mets and Cohen and all the big ticket free agents and stuff like that, but just winding it back like we were doing a little bit last time, right? Of finding players to kind of put things together, right? Like those kind of guys, those are those kind of guys, right? That you get, and like they're good at this certain role, and you get a whole bunch of guys like that, and kind of mix and match along the way. Um, the Rays methodology for that. And there's gonna be a lot of teams, especially like the lower teams with the lower payrolls and lower revenues and stuff. I think you're gonna see a lot of guys like that who like even like the Mets had like was it um, Sherman, the lefty Chase Sherman, I guess. Um, yeah, he was like okay, but it was like 3 million, 4 million or something like that. They're like we'll get something else along the way. I'm like, I think there's actually a lot of value in those sorts of things. Like if you get like a smaller market team, and this guy is like who's okay for 3 million, and they're not gonna they'll be like, you know what, we'll take a shot with a rookie on that and kind of throw it out there. And we can't afford to take that you know 3 or 4% of our payroll and put in a guy who's just okay. Like we need to stitch a couple of those guys together, and a couple like impact players because we don't have enough to sprinkle around. But if you can like find enough of those value kind of players, the 2 to 3 million or something like that, you can really stitch together a pretty compelling product, as we saw last year.
Yeah. What about using these as model contracts and again saying, look, you could sign Bauer and Jackie Bradley and somebody else and be in under 35 million for this season, right? And have very little term associated with it. And, whereas if you sign a Springer, you're going to be more than that, and you're still going to be looking at, the top of your rotation, and with a lot of hope and fingers crossed, saying, oh man, if Syndergaard is Syndergaard, and if Marcus Stroman could be, the best version of Marcus Stroman that we've seen, and if this guy does this and that guy does that, well, if you have Bauer there, those guys are like, okay, whatever you give me. I
Yeah.
mean, so
Yeah. I mean, Syndergaard becomes your sick guy dependent, right? Like we sort of talked a couple shows ago. He comes back and he's like the Cardinal guy coming up, right?
yeah,
Where maybe you say not to stretch him out, but like let's keep his innings down. Well, okay, he comes in and him and Lugo come in you know the the game enders in the seventh or eighth inning. I'll just take the rest away here, Skip. That's a huge potential for him. No, the Mets kind of tried that last year a little bit, right? They were trying with the Wakas and Porcellos and stitched together, blew up in their face. Doesn't mean it's a horrible idea though, especially for like your fourth and fifth starter. Um, and the other, again, sort of the other argument too, like you made a good point on Stroman, right? Like which Stroman are you going to get? Like the guy who was on the All Star team, the guy who was okay for the Mets in the back half of 19, or the guy who wasn't able to go at all in 2020. I don't know. You're paying him 19 million to take a lottery ticket on now. If it works out, okay. If not, yeah, that staff gets pretty thin right after DeGrom. It's DeGrom, and you're hoping the sophomore slump doesn't hit Peterson. And other than that, I don't know.
he's well rested.
He's very well rested.
All
No more
right,
COVID.
all right, dog. Transition time.
All right. Dun-dun-dun-dun.
The Cleveland Indians will be playing their last season as the Cleveland Indians. Apparently, they have decided to follow the lead of the Washington football team, and they are going to play this season as the Cleveland Indians, and then in the off season find a new name and I guess a new logo and a new everything. A new identity. So, as you know, and probably a lot of other people know, I must have something about people called Dog who talk about sports, because I am an avid listener to Mad Dog Russo, who made a very interesting point today, and I don't know if you heard it. His point was that, okay, so if you think the name is, not
Not appropriate.
not appropriate, and you think the name is offensive, right? Then how are you not just changing the name today? How are you not just calling
This does
yourselves
feel Met-like, doesn't it?
the Cleveland baseball team or the Cleveland Baseball Club?
Well, just pick a
CBC.
name. Just pick a name.
Just pick
How
the
long has this been?
Spiders. The Cleveland Spiders. You were the Cleveland Spiders at one point. So just do it.
A little weird.
Why? It's a great point.
Why do you change something before you have the next answer? I have no idea. I mean, in business you don't do that. I don't know why in sports all of a sudden this is like the new magical thing that we'll stop it and then let it run. I mean, I completely 100%. Like once you say you're going to change it, you have to say, and this is the new name,
Yeah.
right? I mean, why are you opening this up now? Now you're going to get tortured for like the whole season if you don't change it. Which I mean, I would bet dollars to donuts they have a different name by the time baseball opens up.
Well,
I'd be shocked if they actually blast through.
speaking of dollars, I think that's the obvious reason here, right? The dollars are the reason. I mean, they want to give their marketing team time to, get this new franchise direction on the right track. And now anybody who gets Indian stuff under their Christmas tree, are they gonna love it and cherish it, or are they gonna get like a year use out of it and be like, okay, I'm gonna throw this in the garbage now, because what good is a Francisco Lindor shirt that says Indians on it? Like, well, at least we know the name on the front of the
You
jersey
can
is
hang
going to be.
next to my Beltron.
At least we know the name on the front of the jersey is going to be different for him next year anyway, no matter what. Whether he stays or he goes now. So it's just a curious decision. I mean,
Especially all the crap that Washington's gone through. The fact you now say like instead of just doing a switch and this is the new name, and we had whatever history with this, moved on to this history of this. Now it's like you're setting yourself up for a year of torture.
I think the Washington
That's
thing has kind of actually been kind of good, to tell you the truth. Like I think people have taken to the Washington football team, and they kind of like it. I don't know.
really what people are that.
I don't know. I don't see anybody
I mean, they're
clamoring
so
for a new
crappy that
name.
it's almost like a goof in and of itself. I'll kind of give you that, but I don't know. I mean, that's another no-brainer one to me. Like, Washington Red Tails. Boom. Tuskegee Airmen. Is that really that hard? People are talking about being the Washington Monuments. Really? Really? Like, I mean, who
No,
came
but
up
there
with
was
that?
there was a very good reason for that. Because they would get to put little Washington monuments on the front of their helmets and just spear everybody. They look like unicorns on the helmet.
I mean, actually the former name of Washington. Actually, an interesting one, like the was it the HTTR abbreviation on Twitter. I guess that they have all the Redskin fan or whatever the Redskin fans all had that in there, so they were trying to find something with an R as well, which I was like, all right, that's a unique weird thing, but I guess it's important to them for the social media aspect. Which again, I was sort of like, okay, then Red Tails, like it's you know go from being on one end of the diversity and inclusion spectrum to the other end of the diversity and inclusion spectrum, particularly in DC. I'm like, I don't know. There's a free one out there. You can pick that one off. Mike Piazza actually has some interesting ones. He was talking about potentially taking some Negro League teams names and using it for Cleveland. So he had like the Monarchs. I was like the arrogant Monarchs. And then I forget. It was another one that was kind of a little dopey sounding. I don't remember which one that was on there. But yeah, again, I just sort of think like you don't announce something until you have something new. Like would Disney do this? Disney would not do this, right? Disney would say this is the answer on it. We're switching from this to this. It's gone. Splash Mountain's different now. It's gonna be gone. It's gonna be this instead in a year by the time it takes us to build it.
Uncle Paul asks
And say what it is.
Uncle Paul asks on the Facebook page stream, what's the state bird for Cleveland? And I'm not falling for your trick, Uncle Paul. Cleveland is not a state. I'm not You cannot get me, Uncle Paul. There's no state bird for Cleveland because Cleveland is not a state.
Oh, the other Piazza one was Buckeyes. That's what it was, which would have been good. But obviously, you have another team in Ohio that Sawyer is known for that. So
The
that was a good thought.
The Cleveland
Cleveland
Buckeyes.
Buckeyes.
How about the Blue Jackets? Oh, that's Columbus.
That might be available.
It's probably
I think the
available.
Metsies cut them loose.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they're the Royals now, or the Royals are going to pick them up. So
How about just call them the Cavaliers? Just start doing the same thing as what we used to do when we named teams the same thing in different sports in the same city, like the St. Louis Cardinals of baseball and football,
there you go.
and the New York
The Cleveland
football
New York
and
Giants
baseball
the New York
Giants, right?
There you go.
And the Brooklyn Dodgers. Did you know they had a football team? Did you know that? They
I
did.
did not know that.
As did the New York Yankees. There were football teams called that. I think in the
I did not know
All-American
that.
Football Conference, maybe.
Very
But
good.
since this is not pigskin piehards, it's diamond diehards. We will.
That sounds good.
Okay, so I think we
hit that one pretty good.
Yeah, I think we hit that one pretty good. So let's charge.
We do have some viewer questions in there if you want to get in there. We have.
I don't know. No, you know what? I don't
No,
think.
you know what?
I think we're
You want to talk LeMahieu? Actually, we're going to talk LeMahieu.
Yeah, we're coming up to the hour mark, and I think we're trying to keep it. Trying to keep it tight.
You're trying to get me off. This is a little inside the.
Wow! What did you just say? What did you just say?
LeMahieu.
More on that
I think
later.
LeMahieu's staying Yankee.
Okay, wait, hold on. You didn't let me do the transition. You got to be quiet.
I thought we were doing it.
I've got to play the transition music. Okay, wait.
Oh.
Now we can transition into LeMahieu.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There's the top of the order. Yeah, it was on the agenda. All right,
There.
missed it.
Okay, So we're hearing some conflicting not conflicting, but maybe a report that's more specific than another. And it's that, the LeMahieu camp is asking for $100 million for 5 years. The Yankees offered 4 for 75. If he does leave and you're the Yankees, there is draft pick compensation, by the way. So keep that, throw that little nugget in the back of your head somewhere. Um, there's another report that says
an
they're
MVP
actually
candidate. Sure,
there's
but you won't
another
get a pick though.
there's another report that says they're actually more than 25 million off. So it's possible that maybe he would say, "Well, I will go. I really want the fifth year, but if you're going to give me the 4 years, then you got to throw an extra, split the difference in the middle, 10, 85 million, something like that.
85 for 4.
Maybe, I don't know. That's just my conjecture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's possible they do that. Now listen, again, I love the guy and he represents like the current Yankee grit, but you just begging for trouble. You've been burnt so many times with these contracts that are a year or two too long. 4 years is already a year too long, but you could live with it. 5 years is just, what are you going to get out of the guy in the third and fourth and fifth year of his contract? I mean, it's just, why do you want to sign up for that? I don't know. If it's 4 years, you see the window. You're paying him for the first two. And if he lasts through the second two, producing anywhere near close to what he's doing now, then he's fine. But again, at 35, you're not going to be wanting to play the guy at second base. And, you're not going to maybe have room for him at third. I mean, plus you have, by the way, there was a big Stratomatic thing that came out today that Gleyber Torres was a 4 at short for last year.
Ooh.
So maybe this plays into it.
That's
Maybe.
Ouch.
Look, let me ask you this. Okay, I'm gonna do a little scenario.
Can't play a 4 at short unless you're Boomer.
Unless it's George Brett. Let me ask you this, Dog. What if Marcus Semien is asking for like the same money as DJ LeMahieu, and he represents a chance for you to get a guy who's a better fielder than your current shortstop, and he's like 3 or 4 years younger than LeMahieu, and you're going to pay both of those guys about the same money over like a 4-year span. Like, which guy are you going for?
That's a great call.
And you get the draft pick compensation if you lose LeMahieu.
And you can put Torres, and you can move Torres to a better defensive position for him too, right?
That's that being the point, right? Yeah. That you now move.
You're improving two positions defensively.
Essentially,
you're improving the more important position defensively with shortstop. That's a great move. And you say bucks and take that bucks and put it towards some pitching.
Now you got to go back to what Semien did 2 years ago, and then hope that that's what is going to be his more repeatable thing. But defensively, I think you gain there. Look, LeMahieu's great. I love him. He's not getting better defensively, right? He's not getting better. He's not going to be better defensively than he has been. He's serviceable. I still think his best position by far is second base. I hate when they move him to first. I think he's not good over there at all.
Yeah.
And, at third, I think he would be fine, but they have Gio Urshela there, who seems to have not proven out to be a fluke. And he did get a 1. Stratomatic gave Gio Urshela his first 1. So it wasn't just the eye test that he's passed, because he's defensively, he's not a big metric guy, but he's definitely the eye test 1 at third for sure.
You were on that over the summer. You were citing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other question is too, if you're LeMahieu, like, if the Yankees aren't paying you 4,100, who is?
No, 5,100 or 4,750.
5,100. Okay. I mean, who is?
The Dodgers. I've heard
485.
I've heard people say the Dodgers, they become a good fit. Then they could trade Gavin Lux. I'm like, why would you even want to do that?
Turner go? Yeah, I mean, let Turner go, I guess.
Or they
I
could
don't
do.
know.
Well, I mean, I guess they would get a little insurance there if they didn't
Yeah,
bring him back. I don't know. I just don't know why you do that. I mean, it just seems like
5 years at 32, particularly in middle infield, I think is a real. Hmm. Like you're sort of saying center field. I mean, I don't know. I guess I wonder which historically holds up more, center field or second and short
well,
in terms of
I don't
age.
have as much of a problem with him at second if I have, Francisco Lindor at short. But apparently I don't with Gleyber Torres. So
Yeah,
now I have to start worrying. I know Gleyber Torres was really good at second. I know he did not look good at short, and I really wasn't surprised that Stratomatic gave him a 4 over there. Now, with a full year, and he's still very young, I mean, he could eventually become pretty good. But like usually you can kind of see that. You can kind of see you're like, "Oh, this guy like he hasn't kind of matured into his fielding yet, but he has a chance if he really works hard, he could be a solid fielder over at short." I don't know if we've seen that. At second, if you
yeah,
told me that you put Gleyber Torres at second for the next 10 years and he's going to win you, 4 or 5 gold gloves, I'd say, okay, that's believable. If you told me he was going to win 4 or 5 gold gloves at short over the next 10 years, I'd say you're out of your mind. And I tried not to use an expletive there, and I
yeah.
succeeded in not using the expletive, but, you know, I want to use the expletive, but we were having some talks offline about, like, maybe joining a company that might not want the
Appreciate that.
expletive or that we'd have to bleep it. And you know
There
what?
you
I just don't really want to bleep that shit out of there. I just would rather just say
go.
it.
Good job, Davis.
Maybe I could deal without the F. Maybe I could keep myself from saying an F every now and then, but I don't know. It's
There you go.
2020. It's 2020. It's almost 2021. If you can't
That
say
is true.
that.
So yeah. So I mean, maybe the Dodgers, I guess, but that does sort of feel like the Yankees can kind of play a little hardball on it. And I agree with you. This is one I do agree with you on the length. That 4 versus 5 is a huge difference for this one. And 37 at second as McCann test doesn't look too good. So
But like you said, who else is offering that? And right
yeah,
now it would appear that they're bidding against themselves. Now, if you
yeah.
were signing him to be, a second baseman in the short term, but then to sort of, go out to pasture at third, now I'm a little bit more interested because I think you can get away with him at third if he's that if he's that good. I think you can get. I would rather get away with him at third. But the thing is,
Yeah.
that's does not look like a position the Yankees are going to need. And maybe I'm just being short-sighted here, but I don't know. Urshela just won me over. Like watching him every single day, he just won me over. Like even if he slumps, they're always going to have, I think, in the Yankee lineup, enough bats where if Gio Urshela is batting seventh, even if he's not hitting that well, he's still so good that you could is you could let him
If
stay
you
there for a few years.
if you're if yeah, this might be another like 1 year opt out kind of guy. Like maybe that's the thing with LeMahieu too. Maybe say hey, give him overpay him for a year and say, you know what, a year from now, we're gonna see what goes on with Urshela, Torres, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna be in a better position. Hey, DJ, next year, you know, the teams are still struggling coming off a bad year, right? If everything starts to kind of get back, the economy starts picking up, whatever, your market may be better a year from now too. Maybe it doesn't make sense for both teams to say, you know what, let's just do a 1 year deal. It's
I
less.
I cannot I could not endorse that if I'm LeMahieu's camp. I gotta sign the multi-year deal now. I have to. I can't wait.
Okay.
He's your guy that where the dog says, you take the 10 million less to sign the deal right now. I don't care if there's a
Yeah.
vaccine. Do it before you get COVID. You dumbass. Like just get your name on the paper and let's go. I think this is LeMahieu's window. I mean, I think in the end,
Mr. Consistent.
I
Right?
think
He's not an up and down guy like the. I see. I think that's more like a Bauer thing, where I'd be more risky of doing a 1 year thing with the guy who's been up and down. LeMahieu's been pretty consistent. So
he's got wicked home road splits, not just from Colorado, but from Yankee Stadium. I think the Yankees are bidding against
Yeah,
themselves here.
yeah,
I don't. I mean, unless they get another suitor, I think the Yankees know it. I think they know it. I think they don't
yeah.
mind paying him, but they don't want to be taken advantage of.
Mhm.
And in this market, it's definitely a it's definitely a GM or team favorable market, right? There's just very few guys like Bauer, and maybe Springer. Maybe who's the other suitor for Springer? I mean, back to Houston.
Blue Jays.
Come on, the Blue Jays are
I
gonna.
know. I
I,
know. I know.
don't get me
Teeing you up
started.
for you.
Don't get me
Don't
started.
don't start
Although
dropping
with the
F bombs on us.
vaccine. Okay, wait. I'm gonna hit the
Yeah, not in Canada though.
I'm gonna hit the transition music one more time. Okay, so with that, we're now gonna talk about um, the
Final
dog is
segment.
the
I'm
dog
like
is
starving for dinner right now.
the dog is always so nice to sing my praises about you, Riz. You were right about that. Well, let me tell you something. On last week's show, the December 8th show, Tuesday Night Live, the dog ran into the scenario where he was like, "Why would the owners start the season on April 1st again? Why would they do that in front of no fans?" And lo and behold, what do we start to hear earlier, just a week later, is essentially that exact thing, right? Where they're talking about end of May possibly or beginning of June, because basically what's happening is the owners would, if they start the season on time and they're not playing in front of fans, they're paying the full rate for the players. They're not paying a prorated rate. If the players have to agree to play less games, they get less money prorated. They still get the terms of their contract. They just don't get it for that amount of games. So whatever it is, if they play 30 less, 50 less, whatever it is, they're not getting paid for those games. So you take the years and you take the money and then you break it down into games, and that's how they get paid. So Dog astutely was saying, yeah, the vaccine's coming out, and New Jersey had its first person vaccinated today, not far from where the dog and I are. So that's a massive step, thank God. And but it's going to be a tough road to hoe before we get all these people and players and everything vaccinated, where we're going to have full stadiums anywhere, or even maybe half stadiums. We might have a quarter filled stadiums for in a few months, but maybe not even that. So the owners are not going to be able to recoup all the money that they have to pay the players. So why wouldn't they just punt it for a month or two? Right, dog? You how did you see this coming? That's what I want to know.
And, yeah, it was funny. We were just sort of doodling around, and I sort of just was thinking in my head. I'm like, why exactly would you push it? When you couldn't. I was thinking more from the fan perspective, honestly, than sort of saving the money on the player salaries. But that's 100%, right? That's probably the real reason, right? Trying to sort of save the dough, but you got to match your revenues and your expenses. And like I said, our thought was more start it and play the whole season and try and work in the double headers. Then maybe, as you kind of point out, going through it, maybe that's just too hard logistically, and maybe you just gotta say, all right, we're gonna have another slightly shorter season this time. But yeah, to me, it just seemed like a no-brainer that as as the vaccine gets spread out more and more, the risk starts coming down. It starts coming down in accelerated fashion, right? So once you sort of take care of like the most at risk, the healthcare systems, et cetera, each month is going to get better rapidly. So that's why I sort of had like a May sort of time frame where roughly 40-50% of the country is covered. It's the most at-risk people. So now you're dealing with like the 40-year-olds, and the hospitals are empty, right? That sort of angle. Would people go to the game? Yeah, the 30-year-old and 40-year-old and 20s are probably going to go to the game, and that's good enough for baseball, right? So maybe I can get away with doing the 50% capacity versus why try and do it in front of nobody or maybe 20% and maybe people don't even show up for early games in April. So, put a better product out in the field and take less risk.
I have a great concept. We're gonna tell this to Kim Ng from the Miami Marlins. Although she's the GM, she's not
Yeah,
the
not yet a friend of the show,
she's
but
not
soon.
She's not the forget about baseball operations. This is just the non-baseball operations person. What they should do is they should have a deal where you go into the Marlins game and you get to like do homeschool but from the Marlins game. Like how great would that be? You're sitting on your laptop in Miami Marlins Stadium or whatever it's called.
Yeah, but they're all 75 from Long Island.
It doesn't matter. They still, even at 75, I think you got to be in school down there. I don't know. But, like, how great would that be? You could just, hey, come to the park. You know, we'll let you in a little early. And
Wi-Fi?
you get your seat. We got Wi-Fi. We got, you know, you just need your headset. And, yeah, learn from the park. You don't have to do anything. You could just do it. You're doing everything on your laptop anyway. You don't need
throw a TED talk on the scoreboard.
You don't need a pad like this anymore. That's for old geezers.
There you go.
How about that? Yeah, like make the kids work from. I mean, it doesn't even have to be kids. College. You know, you're paying your $70,000 a year to to go to Harvard, and you know you can't attend the classroom. So I mean, you might as well be at Fenway.
There you go.
Right?
Just saying.
Fenway. Sure. School at the ballpark. That's my contribution to 2021. That's great. I would have done that. You kidding me? I would have done that.
Do that right now.
I go right now.
I sign up for that right now.
Let's go. In the blizzard. I go. We go to Yankee Stadium. I'll even go to Citi Field if you want. How about that? The only thing we didn't cover is the Super Twos. Do we even bother?
Maybe roll it till next time.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we could just go over like.
Is any like all right? Is there any real ones that pop out?
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Walker Buehler,
JD Davis,
Max Fried, Dominic Smith, and Clint Frazier. That would be a sick platoon. Actually, both guys probably don't even need a platoon. Mike Soroka and Max Fried. That's a big one. Juan Soto, Gleyber Torres, and Luke Voigt. Brandon Woodruff from your 2021 National League champion Milwaukee Brewers.
Looking ahead.
Let's see. Oh, JD Davis could qualify, according to Tim Britton of The Athletic, and Austin Slater. The Athletics' Lindsay Adler reported Miguel Andujar, who has 2 years and 117 days of service time, fell 5 days short of Super 2 status, though Jesse Doherty of the Washington Post reports that Nationals Ronder Suero missed it by just a few days, and Suero has 2 years, 123 days of service time. Clint Frazier has the least amount of service time of the players mentioned, and this is from MLBTradeRumors.com. Mark Polishuk. That's where we're courtesy, well, or without courtesy of Mark Polishuk. Hat tip. There we go. Hat tip. Mark, go follow Mark. Good job at a big spot. That's Marky. You get back to us, the van. Uncle Paul wants Cleveland to be named the Stallions. Yeah, so we're not going to get back into that. We're just, you know what? Tweet us at Diamond Diehards, or put it on the Facebook group. What do you think the Cleveland team should be named? I'm sure that we are going to be the only show or site that is asking for people to come up with a name. It's not even worth it. Whatever they name them, they name them. It's going to be the Spiders. I'm telling you now. It's got to be. What else are they going to do?
What's the background of the Spiders?
They were the Cleveland Spiders back, 100-something years ago. So they just name them that. It's like the Ottawa Senators. And they came back. They won a Stanley Cup in like the 20s, and then, it was like after the last flu epidemic. And
it should be the Cleveland Mistakes.
It's not a mistake anymore, it's kind of over with. It's kind of over with. Lake Erie hasn't been on fire in a long time.
Cleveland Rockers. That'd be all right.
Yeah, the Rockers. I've heard that. Well, that was a hockey team too, I think. I think that was the roller hockey team, the Cleveland Rockers. Yeah, the Rockers. That could be one. Yeah, but it's in this
double down on the Cleveland brand.
In this day and age with political correctness, do you really want to name a team after John Rocker? I don't know. Anybody gonna even get that? They faced him in the World Series, right?
That's true.
Yeah, 95. That was like the John Rocker World Series. Think about that.
That was a jerk. That was a guy. That guy was a jerk even before political correctness.
Oh yeah, he was. He was.
He was. He was okay. He was not.
He was
not a good guy.
not a great guy.
Not a good guy.
Say something funny, dog. Say something funny, dog. Okay.
Nope. Keeping it clean.
Let's see. Okay. Let me get back and tell you one more time about our pals at FMS Graphics. Perfect time to order your okay. To be fair, it might not be the perfect time anymore to order your holiday cards, but there's still time. If you act now at fmsgraphics.com, ordering is easy and you'll receive your order in a few days. fmsgraphics.com is the place to visit for all of your printing and promotional product needs. Holiday season or otherwise, there will be other times. And if you're listening to this
holidays.
And you're out of the holiday season realm, then fmsgraphics.com. That's where you go. Printing and promotional product needs. Facebook.com/Diamond Diehards. At Diamond Diehards on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. Check out our YouTube channel as well. You got to search for that one. We're on LinkedIn and we're on Twitch at Diamond Diehards. So if you are watching us on any of those live or previously recorded, we appreciate it. And you got the bonus of seeing the salmon jacket, which is always a big and the dog's Mets 86 jersey. Let's see, can you see the 86? There it is. And it doesn't say Paul on the back. It doesn't say the Bad Boys.
Not yet.
Those are the watch links. Listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and everywhere you find podcasts. Okay, that's going to do it for this version of our, I don't know, I guess we call it Tuesday Night Live. For the dog, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Thanks for listening to Diamond Diehards. Diamond Diehards is out.